commonly known as Twitter Space, that we'll be having today for 2 hours. Again, I want to thank you, Agnes, Dr. Agnes Atim Apia, for joining us quite early. We expect to be joined by Honorable Norbert Mao. We call him Chairman Mao. He'll be joining us in a short while. But also, we expect to be joined by Mr. Drake Rabwogo, who will also be joining us in a very short while. As I said, we will be able to start in 6 minutes. We have 2 minutes to start off. So in a few minutes, we should be able to kick our X-Space for today. But again, I want to take the moment to welcome all of you who have joined already. I'm seeing a couple of people who have joined from all walks of life. People from the north of the country, people from the central part of the country, the western part of the country, the east, and people outside this country. Thank you again for sparing you time to join this X-Space today. So 6 minutes past 7, we will be able to start our space officially as we wait for the other guests to join. We are doing all this in memory of the late Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Lokori Oulanyah. A friend indeed. I know very many people that are joining the space today. They're really close friend. They were really close friend to the late speaker. In a special moment also, as we start off in 1 minute, one of our guests has already joined, Mr. Odrek Rabwogo. Thank you so much for joining. I'll be able to invite you to pick up the speaker as well. I've given you the microphone so you could accept to be a speaker for today's session. It's a privilege to have you, Mr. Drake Rabwogo. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're going to start off. Again, we want to appreciate all of you who have taken time to join this Twitter space today. We really appreciate from the bottom of our heart. To the family of the late Right Honorable Speaker, Jacob Oulanyah, presented here by Andrew Oulanyah, the Member of Parliament for Omoro County, thank you so much for also joining us. This space is entirely organized by myself and Mr. Bill Agaba. So many of you, I think, for our dear speakers, the person who did reach out to you was my close friend, Mr. Agaba. And we had thought that the late Jacob being close friends of ours, we needed to have this space to remember him, but also his contribution to the politics, to the democracy, to what we see today. So thank you, Bill, for accepting the idea and working together for this space. Our space ideally will be able to talk specifically reflecting on the life and legacy of the late speaker. And I'll take this moment to introduce our guest speakers for today in a very special way. And the guest speakers were selected because of very many things. Many of them have worked very closely with the late speaker and remain very close friends to the family of the late speaker. And again, we want to appreciate you for that. I want to start with the speakers that have already joined the space today. Honorable Dr. Agnes Atim Apia, who is a woman member of parliament for Amolata District. For those who don't know Amolata District, Amolata is in Lao sub-region. And thank you for joining the space. Very close friend to the late Jacob Oulanyah and the family, and chair Local Government Finance Commission. She was also part of the task force to elect the speaker then, Right Honorable Jacob Oulanyah, in 2021. Honorable Agnes Atim Apia, thank you very much for joining us. I will give you a minute or so later. We're also joined by a gentleman who is admired by many, a gentleman who has been in our faces. We have heard his voice and his ideas. Some of the mentorship he has been able to do to us, Mr. Odrek Rabwogo. Many know him in very different ways, but he's a senior presidential advisor. He's an entrepreneur, farmer, businessman, a close friend of Jacob, who went to school with him at Makerere University and remained really close to the late Jacob Oulanyah. And thank you so very much Mr. Drake Rabogo, for really joining us this evening. Again, we will be able to introduce another speaker who will be joining us very soon. Chairman Norbert Mao. For us from the north, we call him Chairman. But he's the Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. He's the President General for Democratic Party, DP. He's a lawyer and a politician, a friend and very close friend to the late Jacob's family. He will be joining us in a very short while to share with us his thoughts about the legacy of Jacob. Again, we want to welcome you. In a special way, I will welcome Andrew Ojok Oulanyah, a member of Parliament for Moro County, a son to the late Jacob Oulanyah. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Again, we want to welcome you again. So without wasting time, we need to start off. Our topic for today, selected very carefully, is reflecting on the life, legacy of Jacob Lokari Oulanyah. For many people that knew him, I think for me and Bill, I think during the time when Jacob was vying for the speakership for the SEC member or rep for Northern Uganda, we were very close to Jacob. As a journalist who hailed from the north of the country, Jacob was a personal friend to me. He was a friend that would call me despite his levels in government. He would call me and ask me, Benson Ongom, I've had this story. Talk to me about it. I vividly remember a story I did about prostitution in Gulu. It was an investigative story. And I think one of his friends appeared in the story and he called me. He first warned me and told me, I hope you're not recording me for today. And then he had to speak to me for almost 30 minutes without me replying to him. But he was such a close friend who would check on his people. And he had friends from all generations, the old, the young, and his ideas were amazing. So this space, we organize it to reflect on his life and the legacy and what lessons the modern leaders, the leaders that we have now in parliament, in local government, what they can learn. So ladies and gentlemen, let me start by really inviting Andrew Jokolanyan on behalf of the family for 2 minutes or so. Andrew, you're welcome. As we remember your late father, who is a father to many, in 2 minutes. As a family, please take us through. We know the day that he passed on is tomorrow, and we decided to do this the eve of his passing on to remember him. Just in 2 minutes, Honorable Andrew Jokolanya, as a son, what are some of your memory in 2 minutes?
Thank you very much, Benson. I want to really thank you for you and Bills for this initiative. As a family, we're more like spectators in some of these arrangements because there's no way we can glorify him as a family, but you as the in a way in to put it softly as a third party, you're better observers and more worthy to immortalize his memory. So I want to thank you very much. But I also want to thank Bwana Audrey Rabogo for the edition last year. He organized a mentorship session that was held at State House in Tebe, and he brought together many different youth leaders to see how to mentor the next generation. For this year's edition, Parliament is organizing something. I also want to thank the Parliament of Uganda. And in all this, we're just trying to see how we can learn from his life. Many of you will remember some of the stories that he shared, but personally, the wound is so fresh. I think it'll take a minute for it to go because it feels like it just happened yesterday. But the support that we've got from the world, from the country, has been overwhelming. I want to thank you all very much as a family. You have kept your doors open to the family of the late Jacob Oulanyah. We don't take it for granted. Recently, we're trying to set up an appointment, and one of the people who was setting up the meeting said that high-ranking official could not possibly ever refuse a meeting with a son to a late speaker, to a son to a late Jacob Oulanyah. It was a very bold, a very strong statement that humbled me. Because when you're seeking an appointment, you also humble yourself. I said, is there a way I can meet this person? He told me very strongly there's no way this person can fail to meet you because of your father. So a lot of you have not forgotten him and don't take that for granted. Some pictures have been shared. I think I have like three in mind that show who my father was. One was the one of the in the thick of the power clashes, the clash between the Acoli and the Mahdi over the land, when the president made him chair of one of that committee to reconcile the two. There's a picture where he sat in the middle of the two different warring parties and was eating with them. For me, that showed the risk that he could take, given that he was an actual leader in the middle of a crisis, the risk of poisoning, there's so many risks that were factored in, but he was eating happily with them, with his fingers. He loved, he loved peace and reconciliation. The other picture that I could speak to is the one of the peace talks, where I think I remember he was kneeling on one knee with his arms crossed, but the smile on his face in the thick of the bush, where Konya and his warriors were there, together with our paramount chief and the likes of the late Walter Chora and many others. The other thing was the third component that I saw, a picture that I have, which I still recall vividly, was of when he was on the campaign trail in 2021, in the 2020-2021 elections. There's a picture where he was wearing a yellow t-shirt, and holding a stick, a walking stick. And then a very young boy, or I think it was less than a year, was holding a stick, holding that same stick. And he had that usual statement that he would make to every child, address the public. Every child that he engaged would tell him, engage the public. Fundamentally, he always encouraged us to step up, to show up and speak up. So essentially, we are here because of him. I am just here to thank you all and to welcome all the discussants. We look forward to learning more about him. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Andrew. Andrew Oulanyah, Member of Parliament of Moro County. He took over from his dad, and many things he has been able to do in the community of Moro. Thank you for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, let me start with our first guest, Odrek Rabogo, very close friend to Jacob. Again, Mr. Odrek, you have been our faces doing mentorship in very different ways, politically, trying to talk us through some of the things this generation and even the older generation than us need to do economically as well. Your reflection on your days at Makerere University. You grew up with Jacob at a time when he was at the university level. And that's a stage in life that all of us go through. And that stage makes us make friends, get to do things that we want to do, or train us professionally. What kind of gentleman was the late Jacob Oulanyah? Mr. Odrek, you're welcome. Mr. Odrek, I have you, sir. I hope
I'd like to thank you, Benson. I hope you can hear me all.
we can hear you now.
You okay? Good. So, just wanted to thank you very much, Benson, for your kind introduction and for, I think, agreeing to moderate this session this evening. I want to thank Bills Agaba and the team that he's worked with to always make sure that we don't forget our dear brother, friend, parent, leader, Jacob Oulanyah, and you, Andrew Ojok, for kind of giving us a quick preview of what has happened in the last 2 years. This is our third year since you lost a father, but the country lost someone who was a mentor to many, someone who was a friend, and someone who we think that a lot of young people should take a leaf and emulate. I met Jacob At end of 1990, I remember the year, I think we were going into 1991. I was a freshman at university. We had just arrived as young people, and both Jacob and Chairman Norbert, who will be joining us, were leaders, together with another young man called Max, I think, Honoria. I think that's the name. They were leaders. They were doing, a number of them were doing in the Faculty of Law. And they had had a tumultuous election that left the university divided. But along the way, I became friends. First with the late Oulanyah's wife, Jennifer, who we were together in the youth councils, and then eventually Jacob himself. And I can tell you, uh, because we look at things from a rear view mirror with hindsight. If I speak to young people today, or anybody who is looking for leadership or mentorship, there are three things I can remember about Jacob. The first one is that a time of transition like we have today, we have transition in the economy. You look at some of us who are on the economic front, we know what the markets are demanding and what our country is doing in such a small way. Requires leadership there. You look at politics, we are in transition in many ways. If you look at institutions, Jacob represented a crop of leaders who think, leaders who think, leaders who are able to communicate very well, uh, leaders who act with humility, leaders who carry everyone along the way so that they can stand in front and see far, but they can look back and step back and carry everyone along. Leaders who build institutions, leaders who are restrained. That's who Jacob was, and that's what he represents, and that's why many of us really don't want to forget him. The second one is that, and I keep thinking about this, those of you who are listening, if Jacob had lived another 20 years, let's just say, he had the ability to cut across regions, age, faith, and unite a broad swath of Ugandans, of people. So some of you should know that when in the pre-colonial times, our country was governed in enclaves. So you have the northern districts, you have the western, you have Buganda in the center. People did not always interact and have leaders that cut across. I think, in fact, that's what Dr. Bote was trying to address in the election of 1970 that didn't take place, the 3+1, those of you who study our country. So when you have a country, pre-colonial, post-colonial, with leaders that really are like local leaders, you need leaders who are also intellectuals. If you think of doctors, engineers, they need trust. They need to work with someone who can create confidence in the country, in the institutions, to keep growing. So had this man lived another 20 years, he was a uniter. My assumption is that he had ability, he had what they call likability in communication. Likability is not that they like you or hate you, but just that you communicate in such a manner that people can come along. He would have done much, much, much more for Uganda. I think the third and final one I can put my finger to is that even in death, Jacob teaches us that young people need to study their country. They need to talk through issues, political issues, social issues, economic issues. They need to learn to talk to each other, to be open, to deal with problems of our politics, problems of our institutions, so that they are able to become mentors for others tomorrow, so that the country doesn't lose a step, so that the country can keep the quality of thinking that is required to build the caliber of leadership that Jacob exhibited. Benson, I can go on and on, but those three things, I could pull them from the past. I could forecast forward. They are very enduring elements of Jacob's leadership style and who he was.
There's
Thank you.
something else, there's something I want to pick from you, maybe for a minute or so. Again, there have been very many debates. If the late Jacob was here today, how would things be? Those comparisons have come many times when we are dealing with different situations and circumstances and situations that faces us. The question I want to ask you, Mr. Drag, is if Jacob was alive today, what would you tell him on how leadership is being practiced in your own view and in your own lenses? What would you tell him?
So, if Jacob were alive today, he would speak forthrightly about the weaknesses of his party without fear or favor. And that for me was really the kind of trait that kept us together. The ability to look for a few people and speak candidly and speak humbly, kind of speak what you call in love, because a friend who likes you stabs you in the stomach. The one who hates you stabs you from the back. It's an old Roman saying. I think if he were alive, he would be very candid. He would bring a sense of clarity on the tasks that we need to do to keep his party organized, to keep it growing, to keep it expanding. I think the second thing would be the quality of debate and the overall institution of parliament. I would really, I would see him trying to train legislators, trying to make sure that people keep time, trying to ensure that uh, people come to the middle ground, even if they belong to different parties, when they are acting in the best interest of the country. I would see him be sort of like a pillar, like some guiding light in the middle of a crisis when you have to get things done as a country, not in a partisan way. I think probably the third one would be that the quality of thinking that goes behind some of the work that is done in the economy, that is done in the institutions, in the judicial system, in parliamentary system, in broadly across, I could even add community. Those things, he would, Jacob would be at the center of action in all those things, even when, nobody kind of urged him on, or even when he felt he didn't have space to get things done. But he had a calling to be where it matters for the country. That's what I think.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Drag Rabogo. Thank you so much for your insight. Again, I think very many people share these common views that if Jacob was alive today, some of the things he would speak so firmly about, again, is the quality of the debate in Parliament and how things are being run. All of us do remember one of the last events that the late attended at Kololo, and they were speaking about corruption. Some of those bites as a journalist has never left my mind. And again, we want to agree with you. But let me get to our second guest, Honorable Agnes Atim Apia, the woman member of Parliament for Morata. Madam, you're most welcome, Honorable Atim.
Thank you very much, Ben, and thank you, Bills, and all our listeners. I'm humbled and really feel privileged to be a part of this space that is celebrating someone that, to me, optimizes leadership and a life that really reflects the heart of service. Personally, I knew Jacob before I joined Parliament. And coming from the north, Jacob was one of those stars that when we were growing up and we were in school, you really see the star that you would wish to follow. And some of us followed. When he spoke, he really motivated most of us. I'd never thought that I would be a member of parliament or a politician. But when Jacob spoke, in all these events and Honorable Mao, I hope is here, hear that you really think that, oh, I want to be like him. And so that is what actually drew me a lot more closer to know this person. I followed him, all his work and whatever he was doing. And to me, about 2, 3 things stand out for me. Number one, I saw the vision, the visionary leader that we normally read in books and talk about. And it came to me very clearly when I came to Parliament and I was one of the leaders of his campaign team. And we would enter this room and he has clearly written out what he would want to achieve, what the end goal would be as a politician. And I kept asking question, what kind of politician is this that have very clear, line and direction that he wants to take? And for me, that really, really stood out as a visionary leader, somebody who really sets a very clear and smart goal that he goes, uh, looks forward to achieving. The other aspect also that came out in his vision was how he really, within a very short time that we had joined Parliament, you would really clearly see where he wants to take the Parliament. And for some of my colleagues, members of Parliament, and even the public, um, remembered remembers that moment when he said that he is going to set apart some days where we would come and debate the Parliament, no, the Parliament we want, or the country we want. And that really stood out for me as a new member of Parliament, as somebody that I wouldn't call myself a politician. I came from that background of research and policy and all that. You would really clearly see an institution that has set its goal and it is just driving towards that. And in that context, within a very short time again, he put together a few of us, about 15 of us, as a think tank of Parliament. And our assignment was very simple. When an issue comes, we need you to guide in A, B, C, D, and E. Just setting clear goals, and you would find yourself really in this space that you know that there's there's leadership, and there is a vision, and there is a clear goal that we are set to achieve. I remember also that when we started, he knew that I have that background of economics, and he said, "You know what, doctor? I'm giving you 1 month. I want you to do a budget analysis for the last 10 years. And then you should be able to give me very clear and simple recommendation." Remember, you're talking to a lawyer who has very little interest in numbers. But I would want that this analysis should be able to inform how our legislative agenda would be set. And so, to me, some of these things that I saw within a very short time occurred to me that yes, this is a leader with a vision, and he knows exactly what he wants to achieve within this particular period. The second thing I really remember of Jacob was that in that position, there are so many things involved, so many people to talk to, so many meetings to attend, but he would listen to everyone. Even in Parliament, you realize that the few sessions that he chaired, he would keep quiet. You would really see him listening every submission that a member is making, and I believe that in that listening, he would really be reflecting on a lot of things. And even in his office, much as there would be lines and lines of people who want to see him, he would spare time to listen. So that's listening leader, that listening person. And we live in a world where there's so many things going on, a lot of misinformation and all that, that most times as leaders, we don't pay attention to anything that anybody is saying or some, but Jacob would put that time to listen and really reflect on whatever you're sharing with him. And so for me, I found that really, really standing out. And I think Audrey has just talked about how that's meritocracy in him. He really, he was so genuine and intellect, very knowledgeable, and he believed in meritocracy. He believed that any subject needs to be studied. And he would always tell us that do not say anything if you are not sure. And that is where the word evidence based. I remember in our first sessions, he told us here, you can stand up and talk, but be sure that when you're standing up, you have evidence. So that is where that issue of evidence based submissions and debates really came. So it's that kind of person that I saw and I miss dearly within the short time that we had him in Parliament. And the dedication, I think the final one that comes across my mind at the moment is the dedication. Jacob got sick when we just joined Parliament. And I remember we had a trip, I think for a UN climate change something in Dubai. And it was really, would see that he's sick. But besides that, he came back and he went throughout the north. Remember, he was the SEC member for Northern Uganda. He went to Arua. He came to Gulu. He came to Lira. And the whole message in that trip was really unity, bringing everyone together to understand really his role and how, and he would be talking to everyone, what is it that you would want us to do? And before he did that, he called us members of parliament and consulted. And he was so humble that he would consult, he would listen to anyone who would give him information. And so that dedication for me, I saw as a Rotarian, I saw that service above self because he was already sick, but he still went beyond his health condition and went round, consulted his people. And for us in the background, our role was to collect as much information as possible and to come back and put it together, write it. And whenever I see that report, I just say, where would we have been 4 years down the road? And so Benson, it's just too fresh, like Andrew has just said that. I can't even believe that it's already 4 years that all these things started and the lights just dimmed. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Agares. I'm going to come back to you, but just allow me to recognize a few of our listeners who have joined. And I want to thank all of you, but in a special way, I want to recognize Dr. Diana Twin, the Permanent Secretary for Ministry of Health. Thank you for joining us for this space. Honorable Amos Kankunda, Chairman, Finance Committee of Parliament. Thank you so much again for joining our space today. It's a space. Lady, thank you so much for joining. I've seen a couple of people. I really appreciate you for joining us. Honorable Agnes, our team, I would really want to ask you this question because I think this is a question that many of us are not members of parliament. And when Jacob started on with this parliament, as you say, research-based debate, you have to research on wherever you want to submit in parliament. How would you compare notes when Jacob started and now as a member of parliament?
Thank you very much. I think he set the foundation, and as the public always, and as members of parliament, it's true that yes, our debate may not be as high standard as is always alluded to. And I draw that in two aspects. That, remember, Jacob had already been 10 years as a deputy speaker. So he already had some of the experience that our current leadership of parliament may not have had. And to some extent, I really think that the kind of performance that maybe we exhibit now may not be compared to Jacob. And I also want to state that leadership styles are different. So maybe that was his style and his experience, but also how, like I said, that was his vision on how he wants to do. But I wouldn't say that we are really doing very badly, as it's always said. I think we are trying our best, and I really applaud our current leadership that, besides Jacob's years
I think
parliament
you. I think.
that we are in today.
Lastly, from me, I want to pick your mind as well because you are part of the team that led the task force to elect the speaker then, Right Honorable Jacob
Yeah.
Oulanyah. And again,
Yes.
as you have said, a man of dedication, a man of vision, he listens. As you have heard from Mr. Rabogo, the quality of debate and talking about some of the things Jacob would have spoken about, the quality of work in the economy and institutions of Uganda. Would you think at Parliament now, some of the things that we would have picked from Jacob, he spoke so loudly about corruption. Do you think his legacy, some of the things that he believed this country would achieve in terms of free corruption, in terms of a structured governance where everybody feel and believe in the way that this country is being governed, do you think that the leaders like you and others in parliament and other places, the sliders of what Jacob believed in, do you think the current crop of leaders are staying focused to that course?
I it's
Honorable Agnes,
that is the yeah.
you are
I'm saying,
breaking a bit, but we can get
oh,
you.
sorry. Yeah. When they make calls, sometimes it affects the space. So I'm saying, I just think that Jacob believed in integrity, honesty, and openness. And I think you just talked about how he talked about corruption. And for me, I think what we need to learn, be it current leaders or the leaders to come or the young people, is that leadership traits that Jacob left behind I would say, it must be something that all of us aspire to have. And I wouldn't really put myself in a comparison mode that Jacob this and the other one that, like that. But I would say that as an institution of parliament, we have very clear principles and core values that articulates all these things. I think the best that we can do at our own levels of leadership, we've got to learn some of these traits that Jacob left behind. But I may not be in a very good position to compare because, I mean, it's still too early to call some of these things. Yes, there, of course, the countries are awash with all the allegations and everything on parliament currently. And I hope that with time, as institution of parliament, the leadership should be able to come out and clearly clear some of all these allegations that are really washed out there. But I wouldn't also want the public to generalize that, oh, the whole of parliament is corrupt, oh, the whole of parliament is this. I think in every institutions their gaps and their challenges, and leaders like Jacob that we are talking about sets the pace, and some of us have got to follow. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Morgan, as a team up here. Thank you so much for those insights. I just want to recognize the president of Honorable Enos Asimwe, Member of Parliament for Kabula and the chairman of Team Elect Oulanyah Committee. Then thank you for joining this space. Let me get to Mr. Odrek for 3 or 4 minutes or so. You are very close to Jacob. As a student, when he became a member of parliament, when he became the deputy speaker and the speaker of parliament. What was Jacob's wishes for this country? From where you sat in the conversation you had with him, where did he see this country going forward? But also, again, what are some of the lessons that we as young people need to pick from the personality of Jacob? Mr. Abogo?
So, Benson, how do we define leadership? Because almost everyone has an understanding of what leadership means, and some of us who know the background of Jacob, we understand that leadership often comes from adversity. What you go through shapes you, restrains you, trains you, makes you a humbler, makes you a forgiving person. Jacob had a bit of trouble at university. I remember it was, I think, about October of 1990. Police descended on us at university. We were on opposing sides, but police didn't separate who was doing what. And they killed Tom Okema and Tom Onyango. And I was very close to Tom Onyango, like really 2 meters from me, when he was shot. And that night, we spent it marching around university. Jacob was beaten very badly. He lost a vital organ of his body. I fell over a construction site at around 11 in the night with metallic pieces that were like spikes. By God's grace, I survived. And often the things we go through when we're young make us walk in the shoes of others. And that's how Jacob was. For him to be in South Sudan and stand against torrential criticism from his own community that wanted the war to go on, and he tells them off and he says, "You don't understand the conditions in the country. You are all diaspora. We got to find a middle ground to resolve this conflict so that people can go back home." It came from suffering. For him to make a decision to leave the party that had raised him, that he had campaigned for at university, and join the movement, those nature of forgiveness and moving forward comes from adversity. So for me, leadership is defined as the ability of a person who leadership is not a seat. It's not being speaker. It's not being MP. It's the person in you, the ability to surface, bring forward, and welcome unhealthy reality to the people, to the country, to your organization. But don't just bring it up. Help people adapt to the new way. Point to a direction. That's why, in the matter of corruption, I don't think Jacob would be simply saying corruption is very bad. Well, I think that he would hate to work with people who he knew were compromised. He would not hold them in confidence. That's why he treasured meritocracy. Part of the corruption we have today is simply because two things: uncertainty. Some people are rushing headlong so that they can pick whatever they are able to pick when they can. and compromising on standards of leadership. When you combine those two, they went against the grain of meritocracy, which Jacob stood for. What kind of person would he be looking forward? I think patient. I think confident about the future of the country. I think um, um, accepting of people's flaws. So when you ask the question of was it when he was there and how is it today, Jacob would not compare because he understood, like some of us, that leadership is a marathon. You train 100, maybe 5 get it. And those 5 who get it will help you bring another 5. I think he would be patient with the kind of some of the members of parliament we have today. I agree with my sister Agnes. Not everybody is in a bad shape. Just 1 or 2 people cause a lot of problems and give a very bad image to an institution. I think he would be kinder to make sure that parliament is respected. So for me, that would be the kind of forgetting the English word. He would be um, a moderating voice against extremism. Either if you say so and so is bad, he would have a middle point at which the bad one would be brought with the one you call good, so that we can together build. What lessons? Very quickly, would young people take? I think it is important for young people to know that there's life beyond positions, there's life beyond material wealth. I think Jacob was an intellectual. Jacob read widely, voraciously. Jacob was normal. He danced, he sang, he was a man of faith. It just doesn't mean that if you're a simple, humble, accepting person, that you make compromises. The external is weak. The internal is where we need to do the building. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Odrek Labogo. Thank you for those insights as well. Some of those things you have told us, I think it's a take home as well for the many young people here. Leadership is not being a speaker, leadership is not being a minister. I think that is very well heard. Thank you. I'm going to open the space for many of us to give their comments as well in 1 or 2 minutes. But let me recognize the presence of Honorable Salam Musumba, who has also joined us on this space. We really appreciate you joining us. And I can also see the Minister of State for Public Service, Honorable Grace Mary Mukasa. Thank you for joining the space. Again, we are reflecting on some of the works that the late Jacob was able to do, but some of the traits that he had. He had as a person, and how we can be able to pick some of those good things that he had as a person. I really appreciate all of you. I will be able to select a few people to give their comments, but please keep time. We're expecting Honorable Norbert Mao to join us. He's our guest speaker as well, to be joining us in a short while. But I will re-engage our invited guest speaker, Honorable Agnes Atim and Mr. Drake Rabogo. Late in a bit, I'll be able to get a comment from you back. But let's have a few of our listeners today who have requested for the microphone as well. I'll give you 1 minute or so. I have James Onono. I've given you speakers. So James Onono, in a minute or so, you may want to start. Then I'll give the microphone to Akulu Betty, who also wants to have a minute to share back. But let's start with James. James, what is your comment in 1 minute? What lessons can we pick from the late Jacob? You're one of the journalists who worked with Jacob very closely. What are some of the things you remember, and what are some of the things you want us to pick going forward?
Thank you very much, Beno Ongom, and everybody. Thank you very much for joining the space. I am very happy for this space. I think what I remember quite well with Jacob clearly is that if you wanted to be his friend, you must not be asking him money. As a young journalist from northern Uganda, he used to